All right, so if you've clicked on this link, you've clicked on the exceeding, which means that you got all 3 questions on the bell ringer correct. So we're going to go through this packet relatively quickly, and then I have an extra worksheet that I'd like you guys to do as well. So if you guys have already had a chance to take a look ahead, you'll know that we're going to be doing a couple of sample problems. I'm going to be going through these sample problems with you, and then you'll have the rest of the packet to do on your own. So taking a look at this packet really quickly, throughout this video, you guys are going to have a chance to pause, stop, rewind anytime that you need to in order to go over anything that I said or had done. And if you guys have any questions, you guys can raise your hand and I'll come around and answer. But this video is used and designed for you guys to stop, pause, rewind, go over anything. There's going to be chances during the video that I'm going to be giving you guys time to do the problem, and I'll be giving you about a couple seconds, from 10 to 30 seconds. If that is not enough time for you, feel free to pause the video and then start it when you are finished and ready to move on. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk a little bit about this piece of paper that's in front of you. So you guys should have the exceeding. It should be a gray color. So in your exceeding packet, I want you guys to take a look at this table right here. It talks about the different symbols that we're going to be using in our equation, and then what those symbols represent, what the unit is, and then what the unit symbol is. So make sure that you guys are including the unit symbol in every single answer that you give in order to get full credit. If you do not, then you will not be getting all of the points for that question. The same is true to make sure that you guys are including all of your work, showing all of the steps, not going ahead, because if you were to get something wrong just due to a simple math error in the calculator, you can still get credit for it instead of getting it completely marked wrong. So make sure that you guys are doing that. So let's take a look at this reminder. It tells you a little bit about the vocab, remembering that the frequency equals the number of complete waves passing in a point in a given time. So if we take that definition and put it into an equation, we'll see that F equals number of cycles over T. This small t represents time. So let's say, for example, if 10 waves pass in 1 second, okay, that's going to be represented as frequency equals 10, remember number of waves, 10 waves pass over 1 in 1 second. So then that's going to give us a frequency of 10 hertz, right, because 10 divided by 1 is 10. Let's give another example. If 6 waves, we're going to change the color of the pen. You can't really see it very well, so let's change it to purple. So if 6 waves pass in 2 seconds, and you guys should be writing this down with me, so make sure that you guys are writing this down in your packets as well. So if 6 waves pass in 2 seconds, that's going to make the equation look like this, right? 6 waves pass, so the number of cycles, so 6. And then the time passes, so the time is 2 seconds. That's going to look like that. So then that would give us a frequency of 3 hertz. So just keep this in mind. That's how the frequency works. We're going to have an opportunity in the next page to kind of practice that equation and manipulate it around. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and do the first problem. And like I said, I'm just going to literally talk through these 3 problems. The second problem, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to do it with me. The last one, I'll have you guys do it on your own before you guys move on to the rest of the packet. So the first one, you guys are going to have a frequency of 50 hertz and a wavelength of 10 meters, and we're looking for the speed. So if I were to go ahead and list my known variables, I know that the frequency is 50 hertz. I know that the wavelength is 10 meters, and we are looking for the speed. So I'm going to go ahead and write down my equation that I'm going to be working with, which is wave speed equals wavelength times frequency. So that's that equation that we have up here. I'm bringing it down here so I can see exactly what I'm going to do. I have my knowns and I have my variables. I already have what I'm solving for on its own, so I'm going to go ahead and just put in the numbers for this. So we have 10, and then we have 50, right, because 10 meters is the wavelength. We have 50 hertz is the frequency. So then I'm going to go ahead in my calculator. You can probably do this in your head, but just in case, 50 times 10 is going to give us a wave speed of 500, and then don't forget about the units, which is going to be meters per second. Okay, so that's how you do the first one. So let's go ahead and do the second one again. A wave speed has a frequency of 5 hertz. So again, I'm underlining my knowns. I'm circling what I'm solving for. So a frequency of 5 hertz, a speed of 25 meters per second, and the wavelength is what we are solving for. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing that I did on the side here, going in the same order. So we know that the frequency is 5 hertz. We know that the speed is 25 meters per second, and then we are solving for the wavelength. So we're going to have a question mark there representing that that's what we're going to be solving for. We're going to go ahead and use the same equation that we've been using. So wave speed equals wavelength times frequency. This time it's a little different because we need to get wavelength by itself. And so you can do this in one of two ways. I'll show you the first way that you can do it. The first way you can do it is manipulating the equation before you put the numbers in. So if I were to do that, it would look like this. I need to get wavelength by itself. So it's multiplied, right, because it's next to frequency. And so whenever we have two variables next to each other, it means that they're multiplying. So if they're being multiplied, we need to do the opposite. So we need to divide it by frequency, right, because we're trying to get wavelength by itself. That's what we're solving for, and whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So then this is going to cancel out, and that's going to leave us with our new equation to solve for wavelength, which is wave speed over frequency. And then you can go ahead and you can put your known numbers into the equation. So we know that the frequency is going to be 5. We know that the wave speed is 25. So then if we go ahead and do the math, 25 divided by 5, okay, you can probably do this in your head, but I'm just going to spell it out here for you guys. So our answer is 5, and then we're doing wavelength, so that's going to give us a unit of meters. Okay, so you can do it that way. That's one way. Here is a second way that you can do that exact same problem. So instead of manipulating the equation before you put in the numbers, you can go ahead and put the numbers into the equation and then manipulate it. So that would look like this. So if I were to rewrite the equation, right? So this is the equation that we're using. I'm going to go ahead and put my known variables into the equation beforehand. So then that's going to be, that means that this V, right, because that's our number, V equals 25, so we're putting in 25 for V. We're solving for wavelength, so we're going to leave that symbol in there, but we know that the hertz is 5, so we're going to replace that with a 5. Okay, and then you're going to pretty much do the same steps, except you already have the numbers in place. So we want to get wavelength by itself. You need to divide the 5, and whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. This is going to cancel each other out, so then you're left with 25 over 5 equals the wavelength. And then you're just going to solve for wavelength, which again, if you do 25 divided by 5, is going to give you 5, and then you're going to write down the units, and then that's going to be your answer. So it's the same exact thing. The only difference is that you're manipulating the variables first, and then you plug in what you know into your equation, versus here you plug in what you know first, and then you manipulate it around. Whichever way you want to do it is totally up to you. Just keep in mind that you do, at the end, need to circle your answer. I didn't circle this one up here, so I'll do that now. Circle your answer and then include the units. So for this last one, I want you to do it with me. So go ahead and do the wavelength. Go ahead and underline your knowns. I'll give you about 2 or 3 seconds to do that. So you should have underlined wavelength of 10 meters and the speed of 340, and you should circle this. Give you guys a second, about 2-3 seconds, to write down the knowns on the side here. Okay, so you should have written down, let's do this in the same order that we did here, so we don't know what the frequency is going to be, right, because that's what we're solving for. The wavelength is going to be 10 meters, as it was written here. The speed is going to be 340 meters per second. Notice that I'm still writing the units even in our givens, just to keep it all straight. Give you a second to write down the equation and manipulate it as well. So not only writing it down, but changing it around so that way we get the same, so we can plug in our numbers. Okay, so if we were to write down the equation, we know we're going to be using this wave speed equals wavelength times frequency equation. I'm going to go ahead and put the numbers in first just because I like to do it that way. You could have done the other way just fine too. But if I do it the way that I like to do it, which is putting in the numbers in for the missing variables, or I'm sorry, for the known variables, and it's going to look like this. So 340 is going to go here. We know wavelength is going to be 10, and we are solving for frequency. In order to get f by itself, we have to divide it. Whatever we do to one side has to do to the other. So this 10 is going to cancel each other out. And then we're left with 340 over 10 equals frequency. So if I were to do that math in my calculator, we are given 334, and then don't forget that we need to include units. Our unit for frequency is hertz. So we're going to make sure that we write it down and circle our answer. Okay, so that's how you're going to do it. I'm going to give you guys a chance to do the next one. I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to do the next problem. It should be on the back of your packet. And then I'll go over the answer to make sure that you guys got it correct before I let you loose with the rest of the packet. So I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to do this first problem. And then if you need more than 30 seconds, you go ahead and pause the video and then resume it when you are ready to continue. About 5 seconds left. Okay, so if you have not had a chance to finish the problem, this is where you would pause it. If you're done, great. I'm going to go right through it and make sure that you guys got it correct. So again, I'm going to go ahead and underline my knowns and circle what I'm solving for. So it says a wave with a frequency of 14 hertz. So I know my frequency is going to be 14. My wavelength is going to be 3 meters, and my wave speed is what we're solving for. So we're going to be using, forgot to put in the unit. Good. The equation that we're going to be using is wave speed equals wavelength times frequency. I'm going to go ahead and put my numbers in already. Since we don't need to change anything around, we're just going to go ahead and put in the numbers. So if I put in my numbers, then my answer, 3 times 14, should be the wave speed is 42. And then again, don't forget that meters per second, and then circling the answer. So that's basically how you're going to do it. I want you guys to go ahead and do the rest of this packet. The rest of this packet is due by next class, so you will not be